Did Hollywood's golden glow hide stars who wielded fame like a weapon? Their unchecked power, raging egos, and hunger for control turned movie sets and mansions into battlefields of fear. Brace yourself. These jaw-dropping stories might shatter everything you thought you knew about classic cinema. If you crave the unfiltered truth behind the silver screen, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a revelation. Joan Crawford. She dazzled viewers with icy sophistication, but those polished cheekbones concealed a storm of rage that her adopted children still describe in nightmarish detail. Dawn often broke to the crack of a wire hanger, Crawford's furious mantra about perfect closets echoing across a mansion too big to feel like home. Friends whispered that she rationed food, locked pantry doors, and demanded ritualistic chores until fingers bled. Rumor clings to one incident on a Malibu set where she ordered a younger co-star to kneel in sand until heat blisters rose, simply for upstaging her in a rehearsal. Industry power brokers shrugged. Crawford's hits kept cash registers chiming. Yet the cruelty carved invisible scars on her career. Directors found her impossible to please. Fearful crews dreaded overtime, and younger actresses rejected projects outright if she was attached. By the 1960s, the phone rang less often, replaced by tabloid gossip and whispers from terrified witnesses. Mommy Dearest, published after her death, became the final gavel. Instead of the statuesque star brushing shoulders with legends, Crawford is now remembered, fairly or not, as Hollywood's reigning tyrant. Bing Crosby, his mellow baritone crooned peace into living rooms, but behind closed doors, Bing Crosby's life was a cracked record of belt lashings and acid remarks. Sons Gary and Dennis recalled childhoods measured in bruises and humiliation, forced weigh-ins, public shaming, and beatings for missed musical notes. Crew members on White Christmas claim Crosby once reduced an extra to tears by mocking her weight until she fled the set. Off-camera pals reported hunting trips where he took pleasure in wounding animals, letting them stagger before a final shot. The cruelty clashed with his carefully crafted America's Dad persona, yet mid-century audiences rarely glimpsed it. Box office receipts soared while family misery grew silent roots. Eventually, whispers reached the press, and by the late 1950s, Crosby's squeaky clean image cracked. Radio sponsors quietly withdrew, and younger fans gravitated to rock and roll idols untouched by scandal. When his children released painful memoirs in the 1980s, the crooner's legacy fractured permanently, his velvet voice forever haunted by the echo of terrified children. Errol Flynn. Swashbuckling Errol Flynn sliced through celluloid foes with devil-may-care swagger, but his real sword was a contempt for anyone weaker, especially women and animals. Marina Beach parties reportedly ended with intoxicated games where live seabirds were thrown like darts at palm trunks. Maids spoke of drunken tirades that dismantled furniture and left them cowering. Hollywood's rumor mill churned even darker tales. Underage conquests, coercive threats, and bruises concealed beneath gowns the next morning. For years, Warner Brothers hushed it all, pouring champagne over the flames because Captain Blood minted gold. Still, each fresh scandal tightened a noose. Courts tried Flynn for statutory offenses in 1943. Though acquitted, his dashing aura took on a sinister edge. European exiles spurned him, A-list actresses demanded contractual no Flynn clauses, and by the mid-1950s he was marooned in low-budget adventures that echoed his reckless life. In death, he remains a symbol of charm weaponized, proof that a million-watt grin can hide a darker blade. Clark Gable. To millions, he was the king of Hollywood. But inside studio gates, Clark Gable ruled like a monarch allergic to mercy. On the set of Gone with the Wind, extras recalled him roaring with laughter when horses collapsed from exhaustion during high-heat battle scenes. Prop men unable to match his cigar brand found themselves fired within hours. One grip swore Gable slapped him across the face for handing over a lukewarm drink. Lovers were seldom spared. Carol Lombard's diary allegedly mentions nights spent covering bruises with silk sleeves so paparazzi wouldn't see. Audiences never suspected. Gable's box office thunder was too valuable, and MGM spun every confrontation as rugged masculinity. But the industry began to tire. Directors dreaded his temper. Young starlets declined love interest roles, fearing the off-screen cost. After World War II, fresh faces like Gregory Peck and Montgomery Clift offered a kinder masculinity, and Gable's reign slipped. By the time he delivered his final lines in The Misfits, the king looked worn, his legacy tarnished by whispers of hearts and bones broken along the way. Bette Davis. Bette Davis's eyes could ignite entire scenes, yet off-camera they blazed with an unforgiving fire that scorched friends and foes alike. She once ordered an assistant to fetch boiling tea, then poured it out as too tepid without apology on 3 consecutive runs. Rival Joan Crawford felt her wrath daily. Davis salted stories that Crawford wore falsies stuffed with ice to keep herself perky, a rumor that shot through gossip columns like wildfire. On stage in Broadway's Night of the Iguana, Davis humiliated understudies by announcing their flubbed lines to the audience mid-performance. Ironically, Davis' career thrived on that ferocity until it didn't. Studios soon weighed her brilliance against ever higher insurance premiums for emotional damage claims. Younger actresses resisted sharing marquees, fearing verbal evisceration. Awards committees, once eager to nominate her, cooled after public tirades at press dinners. By the late 1960s, Davis was fighting for roles in horror gimmicks like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, her caustic legend both attracting and repelling audiences. She stands as proof that unbridled fire can light a path, or burn the very stage beneath your feet. Wallace Beery. If Hollywood had a schoolyard bully, his name was Wallace Beery, a lumbering box office titan whose fists spoke louder than his drawling baritone. Studio lore claims he once punched a junior actor so hard between takes of Treasure Island that the boy finished the scene sobbing, lips split. Beery's appetite for violence extended beyond sets. Crewmen remembered late-night poker games ending in black eyes whenever luck turned against him. The darkest rumor followed him all the way to his grave, that after a drunken brawl outside the Café Trocadero in 1935, Beery helped beat comedian Ted Healy so savagely, Healy died days later. No charges stuck, but whispers never stopped. MGM insulated its star because his gruff charm minted gold, yet each scandal chipped away at that safety net. Fresh-faced talents refused ensemble projects. Agents inserted no physical contact clauses. Directors placed medics on standby for simple crowd scenes. In the early 1940s, Beery's popularity nosedived as wartime audiences craved nobility, not bruisers, on screen. When he died in 1949, headline obituaries were as much warning as eulogy. The bigger the shadow, the darker the deeds it can hide. Charlie Chaplin. The world adored his little tramp, but Charlie Chaplin off-screen was anything but lovable. Behind studio gates, he enforced 50-take marathons, laughing when extras fainted under Klieg lights. Lovers fared worse. Teenage bride Mildred Harris recalled being locked inside their mansion for days, Chaplin raging over imagined flirtations. Co-star Edna Purviance once arrived on set with a swollen wrist. Rumors said Chaplin bent it backward for flubbing a cue. He also ran a private cutting room like a torture chamber, berating editors until tears dotted the celluloid. The cruelty finally pierced his pantomime halo in 1943 when Joan Barry's paternity suit splashed accusations of manipulation and abandonment across front pages. Although blood tests exonerated him, the trial exposed a pattern of predatory relationships. America's moral guardians protested, and Chaplin's box office clout plummeted. In 1952, the U.S. revoked his re-entry permit while he toured Europe. Exile became permanent. Even when awards eventually honored his genius, audiences viewed him through a cracked lens. One part comic legend, one part heartless puppeteer. Laurence Olivier. Sir Laurence Olivier emerged from Shakespeare and royalty, but colleagues soon learned the crown cut deep. On Wuthering Heights, he spat curry powder onto Merle Oberon's dress to watch her suffer beautifully in allergy-induced misery. Decades later, while directing The Prince and the Showgirl, he belittled Marilyn Monroe daily, calling her amateur hour in public and scheduling dawn rehearsals to exhaust her. Technicians recall him hurling stage swords like javelins when scenery shifted an inch off mark, shards splintering at their feet. For years, critics excused the torment as the price of greatness, yet karma circled back. After 1960, younger actors resisted his dictatorial methods, and producers sided with unionized crews who threatened walkouts. Olivier's transition into elder statesman roles came accompanied by forced contrition tours, television chats where he smiled stiffly and called past tantrums youthful excess. Still, the legend of his cruelty lingers in every acting class. Brilliance may mesmerize, but cruelty burns holes no Oscar can patch. Spencer Tracy. Spencer Tracy embodied all-American decency on screen, yet away from camera, he fought a ferocious battle with the bottle, and everyone around him lost. Bartenders at Chasen's remembered him smashing glasses over unlit cigarettes, while hotel staff at the Beverly Hills Hotel hushed up hallway rampages that splintered doors. Even Katharine Hepburn, his great love, endured evenings where furniture flew and insults cut sharper than broken crystal. On Bad Day at Black Rock, technicians kept a stretcher nearby after Tracy drunkenly threatened to knock out every last torch boy. Studios deployed fixers to muzzle reporters, but the cost mounted. Insurance rates soared. Some directors demanded backup leads in case Tracy injured himself or others. By the late 1950s, his career slowed to a crawl, a tragic irony for a performer still capable of quiet power when sober. His final film, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, required shooting schedules built around detox intervals, an implicit acknowledgement that one of Hollywood's finest actors had also been among its most destructive souls. John Wayne. He strode across screens as the archetypal hero, yet John Wayne's off-camera presence could feel more firing squad than friendly posse. Indigenous stuntmen on The Searchers recalled Wayne demanding hotter pyrotechnics, ignoring screams of pain because real warriors don't whine. Extras of Mexican descent heard slurs hurled like bullets whenever takes dragged. Even his beloved horse Dollar bore scars. Trainers alleged Wayne kicked the animal's ribs for balking at a water jump. Political enemies suffered too. Screenwriter Carl Foreman claimed Wayne threatened to ruin him for refusing to name names to HUAC. For a while, Hollywood applauded the machismo, but tides turned in the 1960s cultural revolution. Young filmmakers labeled him a relic of toxic frontier values. Activist actors protested premieres of the Green Berets as propaganda. Contracts shrank, and Wayne's health deteriorated under the weight of cigarettes and stubborn pride. When he died in 1979, tributes hailed a cinematic icon, yet discussions of bigotry and brutality shadowed every salute, reminding audiences that even the mightiest cowboy can leave deep hoof prints across human hearts. Kirk Douglas. The cleft-chinned hero of Spartacus was celebrated for shattering studio control. But stories from behind the Klieg lights reveal a man who shattered much more. Crew on the Vikings whispered of Douglas snapping a whip at stuntmen who missed timing cues, raising welts he shrugged off as part of the job. Actresses recalled surprise locker room visits where he critiqued their physiques with a gladiator's grin. One tearful extra claiming he pinched her waist so hard she bruised for days. Domestic tales ran darker. Estranged son Eric spoke of nights when his father's volcanic temper tossed furniture and accusations in equal measure, leaving the family cowering behind locked doors. Yet Hollywood loved his fire, until the blaze singed the box office. Directors tired of on-set dominion that stretched schedules and ballooned insurance. Rising stars balked at sharing screens with a man rumored to sabotage close-ups by blinding co-actors with hidden flashlights. By the late 1960s, Douglas found himself exiled to vanity projects he produced alone. The town he once liberated, now unwilling to fight for him. Today, film historians weigh his artistic bravery against the private scars he left. A sobering reminder that revolutionaries can also rule with iron chains. Marlon Brando. When Marlon Brando exploded onto screens with raw animal magnetism, he promised to rewrite the acting Bible. But off-camera, he practiced a cruelty as experimental as his art. On Mutiny on the Bounty, he ordered local Tahitian extras to bow on command, then laughed when one proud elder refused and was dismissed without pay. Lovers described emotional roulette, roses at dawn, verbal swords by dusk, and silent weeks meant to break their spirit. Crew members on the Missouri breaks claim Brando rewrote scenes to humiliate co-star Jack Nicholson, serving lines dripping with sexual taunts that never appeared in script pages. Studios indulged the torment while profits poured in, but each headline of bloated budgets and furious directors chipped at Brando's myth. By the mid-1970s, offers thinned. He ballooned in weight, filming cameos for salaries equal to small nations' GDP simply because no one dared risk full features. Apocalypse Now showcased both genius and devastation, a soaring, haunting performance forged through chaos he himself created. Brando's legacy remains a double-edged method, proving that a heart tuned to deepest human pain can still beat with dangerous indifference to everyone else. Frank Sinatra. Old Blue Eyes crooned of romance, but insiders knew Frank Sinatra's temper could snap like a high E string. Reporters who questioned his mob friendships found car tires slashed. One photographer alleged Sinatra had him shoved into a studio pond. Cameras destroyed. Cocktail waitresses at the Sands remembered precise rules: approach with exact ice count or face a torrent of slurs. On the set of The Man with the Golden Arm, he ordered a lighting tech fired mid-take for adjusting a lamp without permission. Production halted 3 hours while union reps negotiated the man's return. For years, Sinatra's Rat Pack aura kept columnists eager and politicians flattered. But cultural winds shifted. Civil rights leaders condemned his racial barbs. Feminist writers exposed a history of fistfights with lovers like Ava Gardner. Radio stations coolly pivoted to rock, and Sinatra's record sales slid. Though he staged legendary comebacks, the singer spent his twilight decades guarding access with armed security, reputation scarred by decades of barroom bruises and broken flashbulbs. His voice still floats through midnight diners, yet every velvet note is shadowed by the growl that often followed. Jerry Lewis. Behind the rubbery grin and pratfalls lay Jerry Lewis, a perfectionist whose quest for laughs cut deep. Writers on The Nutty Professor remembered 3 a.m. script meetings where Lewis hurled coffee mugs if punchlines fizzled. A mime hired for a TV special claimed Lewis ordered him to perform in freezing water for comic realism, ending with hypothermia. Charity staff at his famed telethon whispered that off-air he berated volunteers, mocking disabilities when cameras rolled away. His oldest son, Gary, later described a childhood ruled by silence and sudden smacks, the comedian measuring affection by obedience alone. Hollywood's first instinct was to applaud the box office genius, but audiences sensed the acid beneath the sugar. By the 1970s, Lewis's style felt cruel instead of zany. Critics dubbed his later films self-indulgent tantrums. Attempts at serious drama, like the buried The Day the Clown Cried, collapsed under weighty ego and rumors of on-set torment. Lewis fought for relevance with nightclub rants that alienated younger viewers. When he passed in 2017, obituaries balanced the billions he raised for charity against the souls he bruised, proof that even comedians can leave laughter dripping with pain. Lee Marvin. Gruff, steel voice Lee Marvin carved a niche as cinema's ultimate hardman, and rumor says the persona bled straight from life. Bartenders up and down Sunset Boulevard swapped tales of Marvin's barstool kingdom. A single wrong look could spark a headlock or shattered glass. On The Dirty Dozen, he supposedly fired blanks inches from an extra's ear for lacking fear, sending the man to hospital with ruptured hearing. Wilderness shoots grew tense. Marvin loved blooding new crew by forcing them to wrestle him in mud at dawn before call time. At first, the mayhem paid dividends. Audiences believed every glare because he'd rehearsed it in alleyway brawls. Yet each insurance claim carved entries in studio ledgers, and producers soon labeled him radioactive. A costly palimony suit with girlfriend Michelle Triola further tarnished his bankability, tabloids feasting on allegations of drunken beatings. By the late 1970s, roles dwindled to grizzled cameos, the once mighty gunslinger staring down the barrel of his own reputation. Marvin's legend endures as raw masculinity distilled, but also as a caution: live by the bruised knuckle, fade in its shadow. Glamour may gloss over almost anything, but the scars these actors left behind keep bleeding through time. Their names still dazzle marquees. Their films still flicker across late-night screens. But listen closely and you can hear the echoes of shouts, slaps, and shattered glass. Fame can lift talent into legend, yet cruelty drags it back to earth. Remember their brilliance, but never forget the pain paid for every spotlight's glow. Orson Welles. Orson Welles' booming voice and towering charm made him a wunderkind, but those same qualities turned volcanic when someone blocked his vision. During Citizen Kane, he ordered the set chilled to near freezing so actors' breath would show on camera, ignoring pleas from a feverish crew. Cameraman Greg Tolan remembered Welles smashing a light with a cane because its angle betrayed the truth, glass spraying assistants who had to keep rolling. Years later in Brazil, Welles sank an entire budget on a carnival sequence, then berated local dancers for lacking rhythm, until some wept and quit the film. The cruelty nourished an image of the tortured genius, yet Hollywood accountants saw only flaming dollars. Studios blacklisted him from big budgets. Investors demanded completion bonds he could never meet. By the 1950s, Welles wandered Europe, hustling cameo roles in other people's movies to bankroll abandoned epics. Each new set carried stories of icy silences, all-night monologues, and assistants who left as devotees, but returned home disillusioned. In the end, he died editing The Other Side of the Wind on a moviola in a rented house. Proof that unchecked brilliance can torch every bridge it crosses. Robert Mitchum. Robert Mitchum's sleepy-eyed cool masked a fist ready to snap awake. Between takes on River of No Return, he terrorized rafting guides by shooting blank rounds inches from their heads, laughing when they stumbled into icy rapids. Hotel clerks in Jasper, Canada, told of Mitchum flipping desks after a misplaced cigar box, splinters flying like snow. Actresses recalled jungle rules on his trailers. Once inside, you drank whiskey straight or left in tears. One wardrobe woman quit on the spot when Mitchum crushed her tape measure under his boot for taking too long. For a while, audiences mistook the cruelty for rugged authenticity. But by the late 1950s, post-war society leaned toward gentler leading men like Rock Hudson. Insurance firms flagged Mitchum as high risk. Producers shortened shooting days to curb his midnight bar brawls. He found himself sliding from A-list westerns to noir cheapies, reputation smoldering behind every cigarette glow. Even in redemption roles such as The Friends of Eddie Coyle, viewers sensed a darkness too real to be costume. Remnants of the bruises he'd left in riverside cabins and broken hotel lobbies. Broderick Crawford. Broderick Crawford's bulldozer voice powered him through all the King's Men. Yet off-screen, he bulldozed real lives. Castmates on Born Yesterday recalled him throwing typewriters from windows when lines tripped his tongue, glass raining onto Sunset Boulevard. In Palm Springs, he crashed parties uninvited, challenging strangers to bare-knuckle bouts for sport. During a location shoot in Arizona, Crawford allegedly forced a driver off a desert road because the air conditioner failed, then bragged about teaching standards. Paramedics treated the shaken man while Crawford popped champagne under a canopy. Hollywood tried to spin his violence as colorful Irish temper, but lawsuits ballooned. Directors inserted alcohol monitor clauses. Studios hired round-the-clock babysitters posing as chauffeurs. TV offered a lifeline with highway patrol, yet by then his weight, blood pressure, and legal fees raced neck and neck. When younger producers considered him for character parts in the 1960s, insurance agents vetoed the deal. Crawford spent his last years on dinner theater stages, voice cracked, applause polite, legacy throttled by the roar he never learned to mute. Mickey Rooney, 5'2". Mickey Rooney looked harmless, but he wielded fury like a giant's club. Child co-stars in the Andy Hardy series remembered him tripping them mid-scene so he could command every frame. Publicists whispered of Rooney's slap tours during World War II Bond rallies, open-hand smacks delivered to stagehands who misfired spotlights. Seven Wives shared a darker tale, night-long rants about loyalty, jewelry flung into walls, and threats to ruin careers if they left. On Breakfast at Tiffany's, crew said Rooney ridiculed extras' accents for laughs, sparking tears the cameras never caught. Even the studio system struggled to muzzle him. MGM finally benched its one-time golden boy after a brawl at Ciro's left, 2 Marines concussed. Subsequent gigs came from second-tier producers hungry for tabloid buzz. By the 1960s, Rooney toured county fairs, bitterness spilling out in stand-up routines that roasted agents and ex-wives alike. Though occasional Oscar nods teased redemption, audiences increasingly viewed him as a relic of unchecked ego, proof that talent in a small package can still punch far below the belt. Klaus Kinski. Imported from post-war Germany, Klaus Kinski stormed into late 1950s Hollywood like a hurricane, slamming fists into dressing room mirrors and casting real knives as props. During an early noir, he pinned a makeup artist to the wall for trimming his sideburns wrong, leaving bruises that lasted longer than the picture's theater run. Directors feared his volcanic rages. On Aguirre, The Wrath of God, locals remembered him firing live rounds into a hut of extras because their chatter broke his concentration. At night, he prowled jungle camps, threatening crew with machetes if they mentioned rap time. Such psychotic intensity electrified the screen, but distributors flinched. Production bonds skyrocketed. Leading actresses demanded steel-door dressing rooms. By the 1970s, Kinski was exiled to exploitative thrillers shot in European backwaters, his paycheck swallowed by settlements for assaults. In his memoir, he boasted of violence as authenticity, yet those pages became Exhibit A when estranged daughters accused him of lifelong terror. Kinski died alone in 1991. Genius undeniable, phone silent. Industry exhausted from tending wounds carved by the feral energy that once made him a star. Glamour may gloss over almost anything, but the scars these actors left behind keep bleeding through time. Their names still dazzle marquees. Their films still flicker across late-night screens. But listen closely and you can hear the echoes of shouts, slaps, and shattered glass. Fame can lift talent into legend, yet cruelty drags it back to earth. Remember their brilliance, but never forget the pain paid for every spotlight's glow.